Alright guys, I'm on the rented mule this morning, and we're getting pretty close to doing a reveal on this particular truck, how we got it set up, how it's working. We've actually, in actuality, we've been running it for a little while now, and I'm quite impressed and happy with how everything came out. This video is going to probably be a two-part unless I just decide to make it a real long one. It's about the PTO. It's not that PTOs are all that astronomically complicated. It's just that this particular PTO came with its share of drama and some really cool help from some new friends, which I'll share about with you throughout the video. So, you know, it's been a fight. Even the PTO was a fight to get. It was a little bit of a fight to put on. And it's been a fight to film because we had GoPro issues at the time. So all the GoPro footage over a couple of 3 months or so of dealing with the ins and outs of this particular PTO acquisition, we ended up having a lot of GoPro changes, and so the numerical files of the GoPro are all mixed up. So anyhow, from start to finish, it's kind of like this old truck. It's been a fight. What you think is going to be easy is a little challenging, and what you think is challenging is easy. So if y'all want to check out anything on the winch truck, the playlist is entitled The Rented Mule, and she got the nickname of that because a friend of mine used to say with his truck, don't worry about the mule, just load the wagon. So we'll probably be doing two-part, and like I said, don't let that scare you off about PTOs. This one it wasn't just order, plug and play like it was originally intended. It was a process, as most of the stuff on these custom kind of builds tend to get. So brace yourselves, and if you're going to get into a build like this, expect it. And I'll take a little break during some of the time lapse, and I'm going to share a couple of stories with you about some guys I was able to meet that helped me. And if it wasn't for them, this project may not have ended up the way it ended up. We may have split it apart and gone a different direction, but met some good guys up in the Oklahoma area that was able to help us get this thing straight on more than one occasion. Gave us a lot of help. And I just want to share a little information about them. They may be able to help you guys with projects you're working on. You know, when somebody goes above and beyond for me, I like to pass that on to repay the favor and pay it forward and let you guys know what these guys are able to do, and maybe they can help you the same way they help me. And you know, all of us together as a group, rising tide lifts all boats, all that kind of stuff. So anyway, let's get into it. This is the PTO on the rented mule winch truck project, and then we will be putting out a reveal video here shortly. So let's get into part one of this and see where it leads us. Well, it's PTO day finally. So this is going to be a video for the ultimate shop truck slash rented mule project videos. This is our Chelsea PTO that we got sent to us, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that story in a minute. But just to give you guys a little idea of what's going on the side of your transmission is an access port that's shaped like this. On smaller trucks like 1 tons, ton and a half, it's 6 bolt, 18 wheelers is 8 bolt, and this is a PTO. So what this is a power takeoff, is what PTO stands for. This gear right here meshes with the gear in the transmission, and it's constantly spinning unless you're clutching in. This is considering a manual transmission. You can see our yoke right here is not spinning, and our shift lever is partially out. So I'm gonna put y'all in the tripod, and I'm gonna show you how this works. But you can see down in here, I'm gonna see if I can get, so you can see this shift lever right here is moving that gear right there and engaging with this one. And there's another gear in here. So this would be reverse, it's engaged in here and it's spinning backwards, and then forward it's engaged in another up in here. So let me get this tripod set up. I'll tell you a little bit about what we got going on here. So this is a PTO. Anybody that's not familiar with it, there's an access port on the smaller trucks. It's a 6-bolt. On the big 18-wheelers, it's a 8-bolt. And you have these drive gears. So this gear right here, the tall one, meshes with the drive gear on the transmission. So anytime your foot is off the clutch, this is spinning. And then we have a shifter here. So if you watch this, keep your eye on this yoke right here. So your transmission is spinning, and then if you operate with a push-pull cable, now we're going one direction, and then we have a neutral, and then we have the other direction. So just a 2-speed PTO, and this is what we were trying to get this summer. That kind of went sideways on us, but a new friend I met saved the day. I'm going to tell you that story in just a little bit. So what we're going to do here today, I'm not sure if we're going to keep this flange just yet. I'll just have to see what we're going to do with the drive shaft. But the big problem is this drive gear is for an Eaton transmission. You can see, you can see the teeth are straight. And this drive gear is for the ZF6. It's got a helical cut angled gear. And so we finally found this gear, and we're gonna have to knock this out. There's a pin right here. We're gonna have to knock this pin out, change this gear. We're gonna have some shims right in here. So we're gonna mic all of this and make sure that everything is identical, and we'll put the shims exactly back the way they go. Seals and bearings sound real good. Bearings sound real good in here, and we'll probably change the seals out in the shifter and possibly in this yoke right here, just because you don't want to put this on. It is a used one. It is a takeoff that came off another truck, so I don't know how long it's been sitting on the shelf. And my luck, as soon as I put all this on and bolt it onto the transmission and start using it with oil in it, it's going to start leaking. So we want to do seals and a quick inspection and swap this gear out. That's what we're doing this morning. That way it'll all be fresh, new seals. We'll put it on the truck. We won't have to worry about leaks from there. We got a couple other leaks to chase down anyway, so we don't want to run out of leaks. So let me get some tools out, and we'll start seeing how we're going to get this pin out. All right, guys, I got some punches out. You can see there's a little roll pin right here. So you knock that most of the way out to where this shaft will travel. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to probably punch it from this way out. That way it'll be easier to go in this way. And we're not going to take this pin all the way out, just enough to get the gear out. There's some little spacers and some shims here, so you want to keep that in order and don't lose it. Don't drop it down in the PTO. We also have there's another shaft here, the shifter shuttle, and then this gets into a bearing setup here. So we're probably going to leave this alone, and what we'll do is we'll change our gear, pull this cap and change the seals on each side of this, and change the seal on the yoke, and that ought to be pretty good. Or possibly a gasket here. We're gonna play it as we go, and just so y'all don't have to sit in there and listening to me beating this thing, we'll put you on time lapse. after beating the hell out of this thing, I think I'm gonna mic it from here to here, and then I'm gonna check my stick out. Man, it's right there. Let me see if this little shim, yeah, okay, so we should be able to come out. So we're gonna take this out. I'm gonna lay that right here. That way we know what order stuff came out in. Now we got, shit. Trying to show the camera, and I'm dropping my stuff. God damn it. All right, so got 2 sets of needle bearings and a spacer that goes in between. I'm gonna move the camera and show y'all. Okay, so this is how this goes. We got needle bearing here with a spacer, and then these keep all this together, and that all slides in the gear. So we're gonna put the other one, swap this out and just keep this gear out and put the other gear right there in. And there's our pin, and then we'll just reverse procedure, put a little lube on this and a little lube in the hole here, and beat the hell out of it back in. Alright, let's see what we got. So I can do this without chopping a finger off. Let me put this in the vise and see if we can't get a grab on it and get this shaved up. Alright guys, I'm going to try my hand at a little voiceover. I wanted to give you an update on what happened during this PTO, and I'm just going to give you a quick how it got screwed up, and then on the next video we're doing the install, I'm going to fill you in on how we got it unscrewed. So I called Chelsea, we find out all the gearing and all the setups we're going to need for the proper speed, proper transmission, and all that to run this Tulsa 34 winch we just rebuilt. And they tell me that the ZF6 gear, drive gear, they only have a handful of them left. So they said order soon because it doesn't look like they're going to intend to cut another batch. So we went to their vendor, you can't order from them, gave them a couple of grand of our money and ordered the PTO, and then we were told it'll be 10-12 weeks. So at 10 weeks we called for an update. The vendor called Chelsea and found out that Chelsea had never received any money or the order. So I don't know who dropped the ball, and I don't care about who dropped the ball. Only person I'm worried about is the one that got the ball dropped on, and that's me. So now we have a situation where we have no more drive gears for the winch available. And we're told that everybody's going to hydraulic setups now and not mechanical setups. And I'm old school. I wasn't aware of that. I'm used to what I used to run. So we ended up running into quite a predicament, and we were looking at the possibility of having to go all hydraulic, which would have been needing a wet kit and a pump and hoses and ripping out some of the fabrication work that we did. And I said, this is somebody somewhere has to have this gear. So I spent a couple of weeks locally looking for used PTOs and this and that. Everything was single speed because most of the 450s are utility trucks or some kind of pump truck that just needs hydraulics. They don't need a forward and reverse like a winch. So we ended up trying to figure out any other options we could. And during all that process, I said, I'm going to take a day off and get old school and get on Google. And we're going to just start sending off emails and seeing who can kick us to who and all that kind of stuff. So after about 6.5, 7 hours of doing this, sending emails, calling people, this one telling me they don't have it, sending me to that one, is when I finally ran into the guys at Stewart Wholesale in Oklahoma. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that in part 2, which is going to be the install video. But, we give you a little preface on what's happening, and I do want to make sure that you guys have info on Stewart. I'll put some in the description on this one and on part 2 of the PTO build. That way you guys can get in contact with them. They're great guys, and they can help you with your project as well. So we're going to get back into this project, and I'll catch you up on the rest in a minute. This morning we're back on a PTO. So we did some time lapse yesterday. We had a bunch of noise going on, a couple of different projects, so figured I'd spare y'all all of that. And when I got to a stopping point, stopped time lapsing, I had to double check because I had to go back to my video to see which way this gear goes. So basically what y'all saw is we pulled out and swapped out the seals here on both sides of the shift lever. So that's all new seals. The paper gasket here we reused. It was a little torn, but I used some high tack on it. This is just mainly a weather cover to keep dust and dirt out, and the same seal is in there. In a lot of PTOs, this cover's not even on there. So that was how that went down. We got paper gaskets and a new output shaft seal here, and paper gaskets on this side, and we got high tack on both of them. So the Permatax high tack is just a real stringy, liquidy gasket material that'll help if you have some little pits or some minor imperfections. Then we're using them here and on these 3 gaskets down here because they're not a shim gasket, so it's not going to add any thickness to it. We're not going to use the Permatax here because this is giving us the gaskets here are shims, and they're going to act as help us get our gear lash. So we got these sprayed with some brake clean. I'm going to put a little bit of grease in them. Just I don't know if that's suggested or not, but this should be low enough to where when we put the gear oil in the transmission, everything will be bathed in gear oil. But until that, just for the hell of it, we're going to put a little grease on them. I like to do that just to prevent some dry starts, just like putting a little grease on the seals, and let everything get off to a good start without any dry activity. But this is sitting so low, it should be all full of oil when we get started. So I had to look on the previous video, and I was correct. But anyhow, this gear is going to sit in here like this, and I'm going to slide the adjuster a little bit to line up the wheels to kind of hold it in place. So we're going to pin this in, and that's going to be a little spacing. We got the 2 plastic washers that are going to go on the outsides. The little tabs are going to sit right here and right here, these little tabs, so they will sit in there. The caged needle bearings are going to go, with this out, we're going to stick those in. There's a little spacer that goes in between them, and we'll put the inners in and get it walking across and bring it all the way, put the last washer in, and then come on out and we'll put our roll pin in, and that should complete our rebuild of the PTO. Again, we didn't really need to do anything major with the bearings. The big roller bearings look good, the needle bearings look good, so it was mainly just swapping the Eaton gear, which has straight cut teeth that engage the transmission, to the ZF6 Ford gear, which has this type of cut. So that's all we're doing, is swapping that gear out. Basically, we'll save the Eaton gear. We might be able to use that on another project later. It's still good, or it'll make a really good ink pen holder on your desk, one way or the other. So we're getting into putting this back together, pinning it, and we'll roll it and make sure we shift through the gears, and forward is forward and reverse is reverse and everything. All right, so we're gonna get back to pinning this in, and I'm probably gonna just go to time lapse. Y'all can figure it out, it's not critical. If you have any questions on anything we're doing, just hit it up in the comments later, and that way y'all don't have to listen to all the beating and the banging to get this set back in. But basically what I'm gonna do, I have a little bit of play here, so I'm gonna walk this pin back in where it sticks out just a little bit, and we'll set the washer, and then we'll walk it some more, make sure we're in the needle bearings, and then just keep on walking it across. And then once we get all the way through almost to this side, then we'll check this washer, make sure it's centered, and then keep on coming through. So you may see me with little El Cheapo plastic mic checking the depths, because I want to know when I'm getting close for the pin to stick out this side and not have it already sticking out, and that way I can slide that washer in, kind of line it up. But it's gonna be a little bit of beating and banging and trial and error, but we're gonna get this in. And then the only other thing we have off at that point is the access cover, which gives us a view into it when we go to stab it in the transmission. And then we should be able to bring the truck back, drain the good transmission fluid we already put in there. We're going to save it, put it back in here, and we'll have to add a little bit, because the case for the PTO is going to probably add another bottle of gear oil to what the capacity is. So let's get on that and see what we can come up with. Alright guys, I thought I was recording, but let me show you what I was doing. So I had to knock this pin back out a little bit. I was sticking out just a little bit past where the thickness of this plastic washer here, and I couldn't get my other plastic washer in on the bottom. So I had to knock it back out to where I had just enough protrusion to hold the washer, but not enough to where it was sticking out. Then I could slide the gear set in with this plastic washer, because they eat up almost all of the slack. But we still spinning. And so what I've been doing is holding the gear while this was laying flat. I was holding the gear where I can move it and feel the shaft as I'm bringing it in with the hammer, and make sure that we don't get anything in a bind. And then at the end here, when I get close, I'll have to line this plastic washer up. So I turned it up right here just so I can get a little bit better response with the hammer. So I'm gonna keep feeling this out and walking the hammer down, and then I'm gonna make sure that I'm lining up and just keep on, you know, there's a tight tolerance in there too with the roller bearings. So you just want to kind of, what I'm doing is just keeping my hand on here and making sure things are moving, and then give it a lick, you know, until we get close to this. When I get close to this, I'll look in the hole and kind of visually try and line this washer up with a couple of light licks, and then when I know everything's true, I'll send it home. And might have to, right before, let me show y'all this. So you've got this notch right here. Let's see if y'all can see that right there. And you got your roll pin. So we're gonna have to make sure when this gets close, we may have to tweak this a little bit with a wrench and make sure that we're lining up with our roll pin so that that'll go in and that doesn't twist off. So we'll check that as we get a little closer. That takes care of that. So we got this seated. Our washers are centered. We're spinning good. We can adjust. Let me move this. Y'all can watch this right here. So the engine's going to turn clockwise. So this should be spinning this way, I believe. And when we go here, that's going to be reverse, neutral, and then forward, or something along those lines. But everything is moving smooth. Just a smidge of gear lash. I'm gonna leave her in neutral. All right, so this is driven back in. We got our roll pin here, and had a roll pin out here. We got those in. Got our gaskets glued in here, here, and here. Seals and output shaft seal here. So this is done. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna mount it to get the truck over here, and we're gonna drain it. Before we put this on, while I have the cover off, I'm gonna take some brake clean and just get, you know, all the any little junk out of there that we can. And then I'm probably going to leave this open in order to put a dial indicator gauge to check our lash, because this is the access cover, and we're going to be shimming this. We're going to start with, and well, I'll get into that when we get into it, but we're going to shim this with some paper gaskets, and we're going to start, snug it on, check it out. It's going to be a little bit of a process, but we're going to get on to it. So anyhow, let me get this packaged back up. We're going to clean her up and warm the truck up and get her over here where we can drain the oil and get that all ready to go so we can stick this on.